is dedicated by Mitchell Beja in honor of his birthday. Mazel Tov Mitchell, a few days ago, and we appreciate the dedication. It makes Rabbi Chazanov is on with us over here. So Yasher Koyach Mitchell, we're just saying Mazel Tov to Mitchell on his birthday for dedicating today's class. Yasher Koyach. Just going to
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Thank you.
Do Rabbi Chazanov, you want to say a quick Mazel Tov? You're here already on with us.
I'm here, Mazel Tov to Mitchell. That's why I came. I came to say it in person because I felt guilty doing it over Zoom.
Okay, good, excellent, very good.
And Mitchell is helping us, giving us some tools for the parade tonight. Make sure the signs stick to the thing. We're getting a stapler here.
Excellent.
Okay.
Very good. All right, we're gonna get started. I'm just waiting for Facebook to generate here, so we can post it there, and we will get started. Okay. All right, my friends. All right, let's go. So, Baruch Hashem, Avi, ma shlomcha? Good. Okay, we're gonna get started now. Parshas Miketz. It's the third portion of Miketz, and the fascinating story continues as Yosef came in yesterday's Chumash to Pharaoh and unbelievably shared with Pharaoh the meaning to his dreams. He knew exactly what Pharaoh's dreams meant, and he was able to interpret them exactly correctly what they meant. And Pharaoh's like, wow, that's unbelievable. There's nobody as smart as you, and therefore you got the job. You know, a lot of times when you make a recommendation, I know at Chabad, that's how it works a lot of times. You make a suggestion, we give you the job. So you get the job in order to do it. So Pharaoh tells Yosef, not just because you gave the recommendation, but there really is nobody else like you. And therefore, I'm going to nominate you to be the one in order to oversee everything that you just told us that needs to be done. If people can let me see themselves, it's always more interesting for me in class. That's great. If not, that's fine too. So Pharaoh tells Yosef, after God had let you know all this. Unbelievable. This is shocking. God let you know all this, all these things as the Creator made it possible for you to understand and know. You said we should find somebody smart. Who else is better for the job? As much as we search Egypt, this Jewish kid over here is the right guy for the job. I know there's a lot of smart people in Egypt, but Yosef, obviously, you are the one, you are the person who is the smartest person we can find in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt, and we nominate you in order to share with us and direct the saving of food that we need to do. And he describes exactly the job position that Yosef has, and it's a very powerful job position, right? He's going to become the second most powerful person in one of the most powerful countries at the time. Basically, vice president, or they use the word viceroy. Very, very powerful position. It's unbelievable because Yosef is being taken from the slums, from the jail cells, from the dungeons, and in minutes, being lifted up in a day, being lifted up from being a slave, accused of rape in a dungeon, and being lifted up to become second most powerful person in Egypt, perhaps second most powerful person in the entire world. It's unbelievable how Hashem works. And here's how he describes the position to him. Atati al-Beisi. You shall be appointed over my house. Yosef, I'm making you in charge. I'm making you in charge of my house, in charge of the country. Al-Picha, and whatever you say, based on your mouth, your word, Mr. Yosef, Yisha kol ami, will everyone be nourished? The whole country that you're going to oversee, be the minister of like the food, provisions for the whole country. And everyone will have to listen to you. The provisions of this country, food and drug administration, like you are the man that's going to oversee all the provisions. Rakakise egdal mimeka, only one thing, I'll be king. That's it. The only one thing that you're not going to have a right to is the seat, the throne. The throne, the seat, the king's throne, the king's seat, my position will be the only thing in this entire country of Egypt that will be on top of you, but you will have complete control otherwise over the entire country. And Pharaoh describes it, verse 41. Vayomer Paro Yosef, so Pharaoh tells to Yosef, he says, Re'ei sina saticha oischa kol eretz Mitzrayim. Look what I did. I made you, Yosef, in charge of the entire land of Egypt. I placed you, I took you, and I made you, and I placed you in charge of the entire country, of the entire Egypt. Look what I did right now, just in minutes. I took you and made you in charge of the entire country. Pari removes, how in Egypt do you show someone that they're like second to king, their vice president, their viceroy, that they're the king's right-hand man, and that everyone has to listen to him. But Yasser Pari as Tabasim al Yada, he took off the ring from his hand, Yitin Oisal Yosef, and he puts it on the hand of Yosef. And Rashi tells us that the giving of the ring, this is power of second in command of the entire country. And not just did he give him the ring, Yilbosh Oisef Big Deshesh, he puts on him fine, beautiful linen, very expensive clothing, which are considered the upper echelons of Egypt. That's what they wore, very powerful in those lands of Egypt. But Yasim Revid Azav al Tavari, and he put a gold bling, he put a gold chain around his neck, a gold chain, a necklace made out of chains, made out of gold around Yosef's neck. And Yosef comes looking like this extremely powerful person. He's wearing on his finger the ring of the king, that the king personally gave it to him. He's wearing this extremely expensive, fancy clothing made out of linen, which was prestigious and prominent in the days of Egypt. And he's putting a very expensive, fancy gold chain around Yosef's neck, right? And this guy has become second most powerful person in the powerful country of Mitzrayim. And to add to that, he had him ride in his chariot. So you know how like the vice president, I believe also has a special airplane. You know you have Air Force One. I believe then you have Air Force Two. So Vayirkav Oisei b'merkeves hamishna. He gave him his second ranking chariot. So he got, also the vice president gets to have the Secret Service and the special car and airplane that the vice president gets. He gives him the second chariot. Asher Lois, and now Yosef is driving prestigious. And not just that, he has also the Secret Service, not just the special chariot. He has a Secret Service too. He has the Vayikra Lefan of Avrich, a young man. And they called out before him. They had like an announcer, like he now has security and he's being taken care of, taken around by other people. And they called out in front of him and they said that they called him this name, Avrech. Now, Rashi has three ways to translate what it means that they called Yosef Avrech. They called out, they gave him a special name, they gave him a special title. They called him Avrech. So either the three ways. Number one, Rashi says you learn it as Abba. It means father, Avrech. He's a Av to Reich. Reich in Aramaic means king. He's a father to the king. So it comes from the word Abba. Those who know the word Abba means father. Avrech means he's a father to the king. Another way Rashi says, to explain this word, it means that he's a father. Father means like he's an adult, he's a mature adult, but he's a young man. Because we're going to see that Yosef is only 30 years old. It's very crazy that a 30-year-old young man will become the second most powerful man in the entire Egypt. So he's a father of youth. He's a brilliant person, but he's a very young kid that's getting this very powerful position. You don't usually find that. Or a third way to interpret this special word that they call him Avrech. Avrech means from the word Birkayim. Birkayim means like knees, that everybody would have to bow to this great king, to the great viceroy Yosef in Egypt, and they called him Avrech, which means everyone should bow to him. So either way, the three ways that Rashi learns this word is either that it means he is the father to the king, or he's a father and a mature person in young years, Av Avrach, or the third way he says is Birkayim, is that now everybody has to bow on their knees to this man. But either way, Yosef is this very powerful position. They gave the whole land before him, and hold on one second. They gave the whole land of Egypt before him. He's in a special chariot. He's the teacher, the right-hand man, the teacher to the king. And everybody has to bow down before this very brilliant young Jewish person who became the second most powerful person in the land of Egypt. So then Pharaoh says to Yosef, I am Paroi. I make the rules around here, Yosef. Listen to me. Nobody in my country is going to lift their hand without what you say. You have complete control. and his feet. He won't lift his hand and he won't lift his feet. Rashi says, interesting. He won't lift his hand, which means he won't buy weapons. You'll control the weapons. It's very interesting. We know from our amendment that people have rights to carry weapons, that Yosef had control of who has what weapons. And Ragloi, and also you have control over the foot, meaning you'll decide who could purchase chariots and get on the horse and so on. So he had literally complete control. He wasn't just administrator of the food. He was also administrator of who buys weapons and who gets to buy horses. He had complete control. So Pari says to Yosef, I'm Pari. I could say what goes on here, and I'm making you completely in control of everything. The whole land of Egypt. It just shows you the amazing, quick speed that this young kid went from being a nobody, from being a guy in jail, to having a tremendous amount of power. Vayikra Pari, Shem Yosef, and Pari now gives Yosef a name. I don't know, maybe he didn't like his name, which was Joseph. Yosef that his mother gave him. He gave him another name. His name was Tzofnos Paneach. Tzofnos Paneach, what does that mean? So Rashi tells us it means exposing hidden things. This is the guy who knows the hidden secrets. He actually gave him a name. Vayitin Loi, and now a young guy, he's 30 years old, right? He's been a slave for much of his life, followed by in jail for another big couple years. So he's never got married. This was a bachelor. This was a very powerful, second most powerful guy in the country, but he's not married. So he gives him a wife. It's very interesting if you see who the wife was. He gave him a girl whose name was Osnas. Her name was Osnat. Who was this girl, Osnat? Osnat was Bas Potiphera. She was the daughter of the guy who threw him into jail. Koyen Oin, the governor of On. So he married a very powerful girl, one of the most other powerful men in Egypt that he originally worked for as a slave. That claimed that he tried to rape his wife. Interestingly, this guy's own daughter becomes the wife of Yosef. They must have, politics, you make up maybe very quickly. But anyway, they need to marry somebody who marries his daughter. But Yosef, and Yosef went forth to become king over Egypt. So a little bit more behind the story here. We know that his name was Potiphar. Now the Torah called him Potiphera. Why did the Torah change his now father-in-law's name to Potiphera? And Rashi says that there was something else going on over here. He says another interesting twist to the story is that not just did Yosef's master's wife want to be with him, to sleep with him, but Yosef's master himself wanted to sleep with Yosef. And because of that, again, Yosef was this really beautiful, handsome guy. And because of that, to stop this guy Potiphar, his master, from sleeping with his slave, Yosef, Hashem arranged that he should be sodomized to prevent him from sleeping with Yosef, to remove his male organ in order that he shouldn't be able to have relations with Yosef. So his name changed. Rashi tells us from Potiphera, from Potiphar to Potiphera, which means removal of the male organ of this person. The word para, I believe, it has that indication behind it. Rashi just shares a little bit of the oral tradition that comes to adding more to this very interesting story that's taking place over here. But Yosef ben Shleshim Shana, verse 46, and Yosef was 30 years old. So just to give you an age over here, Yosef was how old? Who remembers? Who remembers in our class? How old was Yosef when he left Egypt, when he was sold by his brothers? When he went to Egypt, how old was he? Who remembers? Anyone?
Maybe he was like 17.
Correct. Evan, excellent. Exactly. Very good. Yosef was 17 years old. Good. And now he is 30 years old. So he's been gone for how many years? 17 minus 30?
13.
13 years. So he's been gone for 13 years. That's how long from when he was sold. And he's already become, at the end of 13 years, he becomes the second most powerful person in Egypt. And his prophecy starts coming true. Verse 47, his explanation to the dream. The 7 years of plenty, the Yosef managing and overseeing Egypt, he made it that the inhabitants of the land, the people that lived there, to start gathering food by handfuls, which means a little bit at a time, right? How do you move a mountain? One shovel at a time. So they grabbed handfuls, another handful and another handful, and it's throughout the entire Egypt that this process of putting away food and storing in warehouses is taking place, and they're going to collect so that they have food to survive the 7 years of drought, of when there'll be no food. So verse 48, they collected all the food, Sheva Shanim, for 7 years, every time, a handful by a handful, for 7 years of putting away. In today's day, it would mean like, we would put it in these cans, these that could preserve the food for a long time. Put away. But how did they preserve it then? They didn't have cans. Very interesting. The Torah tells us, Rashi gives us the background here. They put the food not in one huge warehouse in the capital of Egypt. Every city had warehouses and storage places and places where they kept all the food that they needed to collect. It wasn't one major warehouse. Every single city. They put place food in the cities and the foods of the surrounding fields. They put it each in their own city, in their own field. They took the food from all the different areas, did not bring it to one location, created storage places in all different cities and fields inside the different cities where they were collecting. So they didn't ship it to headquarters. Yosef arranged very smartly, as Rashi will explain, various warehouses and storage places in each area. So he says, why? Why couldn't they make one major warehouse in order to collect all the food over there? Why did they have to make it so that it was in each city their own place? So Rashi gives us a little bit of farming ideas and why they had to do it like that. How do you preserve food? He says every land has its own quality of fruit and food that it produces. So what they would do is, and the climate that it's unique to, and its own earth that it's unique to. So therefore, fruits would be sustained much longer if they stayed within their natural climate, and they actually put around that fruit some of the earth, some of the dirt that the fruit grew in. And that was a much better way to preserve these food, because it's going to have to last for a very long time. It's going to have to last even through the 7 years of plenty and through the 7 years of hunger. And therefore, part of their planning to maintain the food for longer was to keep them in their natural climate and also keep the dirt around them. And then when they'll be shipped with the dirt together with the fruit to go to the capital, to Yosef, or will then be expensed, will be given out by Yosef in the capital of Egypt. So I'm just thinking, like, imagine if you have plants, you keep them stuck in the dirt of the ground and transport them with the dirt that they grew in. That would probably keep them for longer. Perhaps that's part of the idea here. Yosef collected grain. Kachol hayom, like the sand of the sand of the seas. Tremendous amount. There was so much that you couldn't count it. That's how much there was. Every city, every town had piles and piles of storage of food. Okay, because it really was impossible at this point that they got to. There was so much putting away, handful by handful, right? On a continuous basis. Still, it wasn't possible to actually count how much they had because they just had so much. And now it tells us about Yosef's personal life. We know that Pharaoh gave Yosef a wife whose name was Osnas, and Yosef Galat Shnevadim, Yosef gave birth to 2 children. But Terem Tavish Nasarov, before the hunger came, he had 2 children in that period. So there's going to be 7 years of fruitful, but there's a lot of food. During that 7 years, Yosef gives birth to 2 boys. Shayol Lolda, that's going to be born to him. Osnas was Potiphera, his wife Osnat, who was the daughter of Potiphera. Koyin Oin, the governor of On. Now, Rashi says something very interesting, a lesson we learn here from this piece of history, that Yosef had 2 sons during the times of plenty, but not during the times of hunger. And Rashi says the lesson is that people should not have children during times when there is a famine in the earth. People should refrain from having kids, at least if they haven't had children yet, then it's still allowed. But if they have had children, it's prohibited for a person to continuously keep on having children during the times of hunger, and therefore he only had children during the times of plenty, had 2 boys, but did not continue to have children during the times of hunger. Even though Yosef had a tremendous amount of food, he was a very wealthy guy. He had all the food of Egypt. He could have easily had food, but he prevented himself from having more kids because that is the halacha. During times of famine, one should not be having more children once they have already kids. Verse 51, so he calls the name, his first son, a very famous name, who's called Menashe. What does it mean, Menashe? Because Hashem caused me to forget. Menashe means forget. God caused me to forget all the toil of my father's house, the suffering and the challenges of life. Now he is second in command of a very powerful country. And look where it led him to. And now he has a child with the woman of a very prestigious family locally. And therefore, he caused him to forget, I guess, all the suffering that had 13 years ago, which brought him to Egypt. And then he called the second son, Hashem Hasheni Karel Ephraim. He called him Ephraim, another very famous Jewish name. Where does it come from? Because Hashem has made me fruitful. Ephraim means fruitful in the land of affliction. Now I have 2 children. Before I was just a common slave and I was in jail. But now the creator of the world has made me fruitful and gave me 2 children. And look at the success of life that I am happy. And Yosef is doing amazing, as we see in today's story. He went from being a nothing, a nobody, a slave, to being to the second most powerful person in Mitzrayim. Any questions or comments on today's class before we go on to time?
Rabbi, so I'm assuming that his wife converted?
So you're opening up a can of worms. Great question.
I try my best.
Good job. So the simple answer to your question would be, we touched upon ideas. I don't want to speak off the cuff here. I'm trying to remember other things we've learned. It wasn't like the Jewish people never became a nation. At Mount Sinai is when the Jewish people became a nation, and the truth is we all converted to Judaism at that time, because we learn our conversion today from conversion then. So the idea of a Jew, that's why it's an interesting question, had not been really become a formal nation.
Okay, so let me rephrase my question then. So she became a follower of the halacha and the stuff that you said about Yosef, how he knew the halacha. So she became, she followed his lead in those things. Right.
No, that's a great question. So we're gonna have in Rashi, I'm gonna ask you to stay tuned because we're going to address this when Yaakov, where's this going to be addressed? When Yaakov will come to Egypt, right? We know the story, what's gonna happen. Yaakov's gonna come to Egypt, and then he's going to get older, and he's going to want to bless his children before he dies. Who is he going to want to bless? He's going to want to bless all his 12 kids. Plus, he's going to also want to give a special blessing to Menashe and Ephraim. And he has that story there where he switches his hand and it's on wrong. And part of the conversation there is that Yosef is going to tell Yaakov, he's going to think that his father is actually questioning the legitimacy of these children. Yosef is actually concerned. Exactly what you're asking, that Yaakov is going to question, do they deserve to be blessed? He thinks that's what's bothering his father. Do they deserve to be blessed? Because maybe he did not have them in purity. Maybe there was no marriage there. Maybe these kids are illegitimate. And we'll learn then, you'll see, we'll get there when we learn about it, that Yosef will, I believe Rashi even says, produce a marriage document, a ksuba, kiddushin, a marriage certificate to show that his marriage was done all in the correct way, whatever correct then means. Okay, so again, you weren't required then to do what you needed to do post Mount Sinai. All of a sudden the requirements became much more strict and much more detailed, but Yaakov does, Yosef thinks Yaakov is questioning him on this, and Yosef tells his father he did everything as a Jewish man should. So I hope that partially answers your question. Again,
no, it absolutely does. And the other thing is that I know, and I'm probably the way I'm thinking of it, I'm probably connecting two disparate ideas that shouldn't be connected. The entire idea of saving when there's plenty. I know that when we were in Egypt, there were people who tried to save manna, and there's things like that where we're not allowed to save. We're supposed to, God gives it to you, so you're supposed to use it. But this is different because we were told to save, right?
Well, it's good to save. Even today, it's good to save. It's good to invest and do those things. In the desert, it was a unique situation which God did not want us to save.
Okay, so I was right. There are two separate ideas.
I don't think in life we're anti-saving. If in the Monday afternoon class that we do, we learn a book called Sha'ar B'tachon, Faith and Trust in Hashem, and it discusses how does one who's living hand to mouth, right, paycheck to paycheck, how does he look at life? And pretty much the author of the Sha'ar B'tachon writes that a person in life who's living in that situation, that's the kind of life God made for him, has to look at it like he's living like the Jews in the desert, like a baby. The example he gives is a baby who's nursing from its mother. Hashem gives a mother exactly enough milk per day, right? It's very interesting. Hashem gives the mother exactly enough milk every day, exactly for what the baby needs, not more and not less, right? Isn't that interesting? So we have a reality in today's world which someone lives like the Jews in the desert, which you get only on the day that you need, only enough. But it seems in life that Hashem provided many of us, and we should try and save and put away for a certain situation. So you can't bring in, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm thinking just out loud as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking that you cannot bring an example from the desert or from Egypt to regular investment. There was a clear directive.
No, that makes sense.
You understand? There was a clear directive from Hashem.
Yeah, absolutely.
To put away. I don't know if we should each be putting away for 7 years. Maybe we should, but I don't know. I don't think that commandment in Egypt was to each of us to put away savings every year, every day for 7 years. And I don't think that you should always spend however much money you have in order to, because God will provide you tomorrow. I don't know that that's a good idea either. So I don't know if we can learn. It's very interesting to take business advice, but especially as this is pre-Mount Sinai experiences, doesn't mean it's a lesson. Definitely what to be learned, but doesn't mean we have to act business in that kind of way.
That makes sense. And just one last thing, and maybe this might be a little too general, so please feel free to skip over this.
Questions, because you're making me think, and I think you're getting everyone else to think. That's good. Yeah.
That's up for debate. The last thing. So Yosef
anybody in our class disagree? Does anybody disagree?
No one has. Everyone wants to be polite.
Everyone's shaking their head. Yes, I think
they want to be polite. So Yosef.
We can't see you. That's the issue. Okay.
Yosef seems to be very aware of all the stuff that's going on. Is there? How much of the greater plan is he aware of? Because he seems to be tapped into the vein here in terms of like the broader scheme about the broader plan of Hashem.
Everybody knew about it. God told it straight out to Abraham. God told Abraham, you're going to end up in Egypt, in a land that's foreign to them, and they're going to be slaves. They all knew this. This was public information.
But did he know that he was the critical role that he is, and did that knowledge kind of guide him? Okay,
yes. It seems like from a number of times that you're talking about, it's a great question, another great point. It seems like they all know this was coming, and now they're seeing it play out. It's a great point. Correct. Exactly. They all see it's coming, and they're seeing it play out in front of their eyes, and now they're getting clarity in what that means. I'll tell you something interesting. Just a comment.
So did that infect the Paro? Did all these other people kind of become believers in it, even though they weren't followers? Like,
well, that's one of the most amazing statements that Yosef is going to make later on. One of the most amazing, Yosef says, when the brothers say, we're sorry we sold you, we're so embarrassed of you, Yosef says, Hashem sent me to provide food for you. This was all God's plan. That's what Yosef says. So, you know what I mean? It's like a prophecy that you don't understand, that everything's being understood and everything's making sense as history is playing out. So I would say, at the Hanukkah party, someone said something cute yesterday that I was at. It says that before Mashiach comes, there'll be no more money left in the pocket. But he's questioning that because we believe Mashiach is coming right away very soon. We're right before the coming of Mashiach. So we see today people have more money than they ever had before. So why is it that there'll be no money left in the pocket? So the guy said, very cute, he said that means credit cards because nobody uses money today anymore. Everybody just uses credit cards. So the meaning of there'll be everyone always thought no money left in the pocket means, that everyone will be poor. It doesn't say they'll be poor. It says there'll be no money in the pocket. That's all it means. It means I will be using electronic ways of providing money. So when you have my point is, I'll give you another example. It always says we'll fly on the wings of eagles to Israel when Mashiach comes. And they've been saying this, you're talking about thousands of years we've been saying this. I mean, hello, it's an airplane, right? But nobody 500 years ago, before the Wright brothers, right? I think that's who invented flying, would have ever imagined that's what it means. They thought it means literally eagles. So therefore, the point I want to say is that when prophecies are given, we believe them, but we don't understand always how they come out. That's how I would understand what's going on over here.
I get it. You're saying to buy Bitcoin. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answers, Rabbi. Very appreciated.
I mean, that this is off the cuff again. I think this is what makes sense to me, so hopefully it'll make sense to everyone else. Any other questions or comments? I think Eyal unmuted himself.
Yes, I did. So my question is a little bit about the math here. If Joseph was sold to Egypt at the age of 17, correct?
Correct.
And he was 22 years in jail.
No, he wasn't 22 years in jail, no.
That's what they said. They said the Gemara says that he was supposed to be 20 years in jail, and God made the wine chief forget for 2 years about
yeah, so
Joseph.
not 22 years. I believe it's 2 years.
No, I thought it was 22 years. It was
No,
20 plus the 2.
It says after 2 years, the story, Pharaoh had the 2 dreams. I believe the word in the Torah is 2 years. I think you might be mixing up with 2 years.
Didn't say 20 years and then he was punished and he got added 2 years.
No, it was
to
a
the
total
punishment.
of 22 years that I think maybe what you're mixing it up with is that his father did not see him for 22 years, starting from 17 till 30, which is 13 years. Plus, there's going to be 7 years of plenty, which his father still won't know. So how much is that? So 13 and 7 is 20. And then until 2 years, the brothers won't decide to come down to Egypt to get more food. So now add 2 to 20, and that's how you get the number 22. You with me, Eyal?
Yeah, it's a little confusing, but I see your point that it's after 2 years.
Correct. So it's 13 years of slave plus jail. It's a total of 13 years. Then it's another 7 years of good times of food, which Yaakov is not coming down to Egypt yet. So now you're holding 13 plus 7 is 20. Plus you add another 2 years of the hunger till Yaakov finally tells his sons, we need to go down to get food. And that's how you get the number 22.
All
right?
So my next question is, when do you study Rabbeinu Bechaye again?
Monday at Yehuda's store. He's on here somewhere. He's not on here anymore. Get that furniture. Every Monday we have a lunch and Yehuda orders Chinese or pizza. And it's a limited number because of Corona, but I believe we'll have up to 10 people. And we have room for you if you want to come. I'll text you. Send me a text so I remember, and I will text you his cell phone so you could let us know when you want to come.
Okay, thank you.
All right? We study Rabbeinu Bechaye every Monday together. Okay, moving on to Tanya, my friends. That is the end of today's Chumash. Those who made the half-hour commitment, you've accomplished your commitment. Those who want to learn about their soul, stay on, stick along with me, and we'll move on to the topic of Tanya.